Hello, and welcome to Making Known the Unknown. I'm your host, Tina Tarek, and with me today are our regulars, Reverend Carl Hewitt, founder of Gifts of the Spirit Church, and also a medium. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you.
And Sydney Schwartz, teacher from Hackensack, New Jersey, and Bible researcher. Welcome, Sydney.
Thank you.
Both of these gentlemen have authored the book, My First Encounter with an Angel, Revelations of Ancient Wisdom. And we use this book during quite a bit of this show to uncover many, many things that I am finding out are not very well known with respect to the spirit world and the physical world. Our show tonight, Gifts of the Spirit Part 7, will discuss a gift of the Spirit that's referred to as materialization. And for that definition, I'm going to refer to the book, and I will read to you just a small part, because it's quite large, about what materialization is with respect to a gift that somebody could possess. It says that materialization occurs when spirit draws ectoplasm from the cells of the body of the medium, and it is sculpted into a form. What is ectoplasm? The American Illustrated Medical Dictionary refers to ectoplasm as the outer, stiffer portion or region of the cytoplasm, we might have all heard that in science in school, of a cell which may be differentiated in texture from their inner portion. And then it goes on to say, under the right conditions, spirit can draw the ectoplasm from the cells of the medium's body and use the energy that emanates from the ectoplasm. The energy found in ectoplasm is life force energy, life force. And then there are two other interesting pieces here, and then I will turn it over to our experts. And under special conditions determined by spirit, ectoplasm may be produced in the daylight, but this is also extremely rare. In the daylight, ectoplasm has the appearance of fire, very interesting, and in darkness it appears as a cloud of smoke. Now, with that, Sydney Schwartz, can you tell me what you found with respect to materialization in your research?
Well, to go back to initially what happened when I was learning about all this, I would hear the term ectoplasm, and I never really understood it that well because it wasn't really defined. And one day, you know, I do work in a middle school, I walked into the biology classroom, and the teacher had the word ectoplasm on the blackboard, and I freaked out. And I said, how come you have that word on there? And she explained to me that it was found in the human body, in the cells. I hadn't found that out yet. And it was after that that I went and researched some medical dictionaries, like this one here, which talks about the fact that it's part of the cells. Materialization is really it's the only gift of the spirit that I haven't actually personally witnessed, because that type of mediumship is very, very rare these days. But what basically happens is the medium goes into a trance state, and in the trance state, the spirit people withdraw this substance from the body, and they use it like Play-Doh. They just sculpt it. It forms like a pillar of. The Bible talks about a pillar of cloud. So from on the bottom of the seance room on the floor, building upwards, this white smoky substance comes up, and the spirit people can then enter into it. A spirit can enter into it. Now remember, they have a body, they have a soul body, and they step into this cloudy substance. And you know how a skin diver would put on a swimsuit, the wetsuit, that's what they call it. They would, they'd put it on. They take this ectoplasm and they make it cling to their spirit body, because we can't see their spirit body. But this ectoplasm is physical matter. Therefore, we can see it with our physical eyes, and they make it molded against their spirit body, and all the features can be seen. And then once that's done, they can speak to it, and so you can speak to the spirit and see this person you're talking to.
Now, just jumping away from this just for a little bit,
yeah.
Because I'm not familiar with this myself.
Right.
One of the only things that I could think of that would come close to this that I might have ever seen might have been in a Hollywood movie where we might see a ghost, a cloudy figure that seems to take on a human shape or proportion. Do you think in some strange way that this could have been something real at some time, and now it's gotten turned into something that appears to be not real?
For a spirit to materialize in the way you're talking about, in a ghostly form, it takes a lot of energy, and they can only hold it for a very short time because it takes so much energy. Because what they're doing is they're bringing their vibration down to a level that we can see it, which is very difficult. In materialization, because they're using physical matter that's surrounding their body, this seance can last for a half hour or so. A ghost can't materialize for a half an hour.
Okay.
You might see him for 10, 15 seconds.
Okay.
Okay? So that's what the difference is. Because there's physical matter involved here that they're encompassing around themselves, the seance could last for maybe up to a half hour.
So one doesn't come from the other. They're really two different things
They're
that
two
we're
different
talking
things,
about.
but they're similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Carl, did you want to
As a
add something?
medium, and all the research we've done, they can never hold that any more than 5 seconds.
5 seconds, the ghost.
5 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, very
It takes so much energy.
Okay.
And the medium themselves is just washed out after that. Totally washed out.
But a medium has to be there at
Oh,
that
absolutely.
time
Absolutely.
for this energy or this ectoplasm to be drawn from.
For materialization, yes.
What is the medium doing exactly
The
while
medium
this
is in a
happens?
trance state.
Okay.
Medium is out of it completely.
Is this done, I was reading here now in the book that it's done in the daylight, but it's very rare. So does that mean it's usually in the dark, like the
Yes.
trumpet seance
Yes,
we were
it
talking
is in
about?
the
Yes.
dark, unless the medium is extremely powerful. I mean, powerful meaning very gifted.
So
Very gifted.
this has to take an incredible amount of energy
They
Yes.
don't
from this
usually
person.
live
Yes.
very long after that.
Really?
One of the most famous materialization mediums was Ethel Post Parrish. She founded this Silver Bell camp that I went to in Effort, Pennsylvania. She also worked in Florida. She was a materialization medium, and she agreed to have scientists work with her, and the spirit people allowed it to happen. And basically, when she sat in these seances, did one seance, and she was sitting in a chair, but the chair was on a big scale. And when they measured her weight as the seance progressed, 37 pounds of ectoplasm came out of her body, but when it was all over, only about 33 came back. So there was a loss of several pounds of this energy. So that's why she was so exhausted.
So within you mentioned maybe 25 or 30 minutes that the seance lasted,
Mm-hmm.
she lost 37 pounds.
Right,
She
initially.
actually lost 37 pounds. What a great way to diet.
But it's not permanent. But if you were to diet that way, you wouldn't last too long because it's your energy. Remember, ectoplasm is coming from your cells of your body. It's being withdrawn out, okay? It's being molded by the spirit people, and then it has to come back, or the person wouldn't have any life force energy left.
And what came back, you said in this example, 34 pounds came back.
Right.
So she lost 3.
So you lost 3 or 4 pounds, yes.
And hopefully the 3 or 4 that she lost wasn't intended to be used for something vital
Right.
for her body.
Well, this is why some of these mediums don't live too long, because they're constantly dispensing energy, and the
Okay.
life force energy.
All right. Okay. So the ectoplasm is worn like a garment
Right.
by the person in spirit. Then what happens after
Well,
that?
see, in 1953, there was a very famous seance that took place. And in this seance, they had a photographer there, and his name was Jack Edwards. And he used infrared film. If you know about infrared film, you can be in the total darkness, take a picture,
Right.
and something comes out.
Right,
Okay,
right.
because it's registering the infrared level, not the level that we normally see, which is heard there. So they were in the dark seance room, and he was taking pictures of Silver Bell as she was materializing. And you could see, as you can see these pictures on the screen now, you can see the medium sitting in a cabinet, and a cabinet is an enclosure that's around the medium that helps to condense the ectoplasm, helps all the smoky stuff not just dissipate out, but to be condensed, and it comes out and it forms the pillar coming from the ground upward. And as the series of 7 pictures, you can see more and more detail of the face of the spirit coming through. The spirit's name was Silver Bell. It was an Indian princess, and she was the guide for Ethel Post Parrish. And at the 6th picture, she was fully formed, and she was speaking to the people. Unfortunately, the photographer ran out of film, and he had to change the film for the 7th shot. And by the time that all took place in the dark, she was already starting to dissipate. So the last picture is she's not as well formed as she was in the 6th picture. And during a different seance, Spirit worked it out that because normally you can't touch the ectoplasm, you'd kill the medium instantly. But they were able to protect the medium in such a way that they put a blood pressure machine on the medium's arm, and they put a blood pressure thing on the cuff on the Spirit Silver Bell.
Really?
Yes, and the blood pressure was different. The rates of speed were different. Okay, which is showing it was a different entity in that ectoplasm.
You mean to tell me that this entity, Silver Bell,
Yes.
without what we would know a conventional body with a heart and a circulatory system, was able to register on a blood pressure cuff?
Yes.
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 Definitely.
See, this little booklet that was published by Lena Barnes Jeffs, which she was the author, Lo, I Am With You Always, it talks about Silver Bell and Ethel Parish. And in this book, all these experiments and things are talked about.
So they without a doubt proved that these two people, the medium and the entity that came through, were not connected in any way, shape, or form.
And no, the only thing that was connecting them was that they shared ectoplasm.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And now there were several people there to witness this.
Yes.
To see this.
Yes.
And Silver Bell, I would guess, gave a message to
She talked to the people. Yes. Yes. And, you know, Tina, as we keep saying so often, the laws of psychic science have never changed, and what was true in biblical times was true today. We've been talking about what happened in today. We can go into the Bible and talk about materialization taking place with Moses. And we find a record of that in chapter 33 of the book of Exodus. And in verse 7 it reads, "And the tent which was called the meeting tent, Moses used to pitch some distance away outside the camp. And anyone who wished to consult the Lord would go to this meeting tent outside the camp." This second part of this verse is extremely interesting because I've researched 130 different versions of the Old Testament, and this verse varies a lot as for what they say here. This one says, "Anyone who wished to consult the Lord." Other places said, "Anyone who wished to ask the Lord a question," "Anyone who wished to settle disputes," "Anyone who wished to pray to the Lord." And obviously praying and asking a question is two totally different things. But the point that's interesting is, why would anyone want to ask the question of the Lord unless they got an immediate answer?
Right.
So this proved that whatever was going to be taking place, there was going to be communication between the Spirit and the Lord, which is the physical person, and the Lord, which is really Spirit. They would have a two-way conversation, which is what materialization is. As we continue reading, it says, "And whenever Moses went out to the tent, the people would all rise and stand at the entrance of their own tent, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses entered the tent, a column of cloud would come down and stand at his entrance, and the Lord spoke with Moses. On seeing the column of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise and worship at the entrance of their own tent." And here's the important verse, verse 11. "The Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as one man speaks to another. And then Moses would return to the camp, but his young assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, would not move out of the tent." Tina, you know, the Silver Bell pictures, if the camera person can zoom in on this. This book that I'm holding up was published in 1959. And these pictures were done way before computers were invented, before Photoshop was around. But now that Photoshop is here, I took the Silver Bell pictures and I scanned them into the computer and I did some editing of them. And I can recreate for the viewers what actually happened in the seance room with Moses. Okay? There was a cabinet within the tent. That was called the Holy of Holies.
Okay.
Inside of it, Joshua sat in the tent in a meditative state.
So Joshua was the medium.
Joshua was the medium in
Okay.
this case.
All right.
Moses was at the tent, and he was there. And then as the spirit people got ready, a pillar of cloud started to come out from Joshua's body this time. Okay? And as that pillar was created, all of a sudden the spirit of Yahweh was there. When that materialized spirit was there, Moses could see the spirit face to face as a man speaks with his friend, just as it says in the Bible. And after the seance was over, Joshua was so exhausted because he lost that spirit, that energy, that ectoplasmic energy, that he was too tired to leave the tent, so he just slept there that night.
Oh, wow.
So what happened today, what happens in the Bible here, can also happen in biblical times. The same process happened with Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. Most people know about that. Jesus took his best students, Peter, James, and John, and they went up to this mountain, and all of a sudden, Elijah and Moses appeared. And they talk about this dazzling change, their clothes glimmered. Well, that was the ectoplasm that was being produced. And the three of them, Elijah, Moses, and Jesus, had a conversation, and the spirit people were telling Jesus of what his mission would be in Jerusalem, that he would die, and so forth, which everyone knows. But what's interesting to really think about is that Moses had died 1,482 years before that seance took place. Elijah had died 928 years before that seance took place. So if there's anything to prove the continuity of life, that the soul survives death and lives in another dimension and knows what's going on here and helps people and guides people on this dimension, that seance proves it more than anything else.
You see, that dimension is timeless. And the same thing that he just shared with us has been taught to me since I was a small kid.
And think about it. What did Peter say to Jesus? Master, it's a good thing that we're here. Let me build 3 tents for you, 3 shelters for you. One for Moses, one for Elijah, and one for you. And why did he say that? Because he knew that there had to be a cabinet for materialization. Right. The Bible goes on to say he didn't know what he was saying. He was so afraid he didn't know what he was saying. It says that in Mark, that he was afraid, he didn't know what he was saying. He knew what he was saying. He understood the psychic phenomena there. He knew that for a materialization to take place, you had to have a cabinet, and that's why he said that. That's why it says, I'll build a tent, a tabernacle. These were all different words that describe the cabinets that a medium used. Just like in this book, they talk about the tent that was here, or some books call it a tabernacle. It's the same thing.
Now, a tabernacle has also been interchanged with a church.
Yes.
Or a temple.
Yes.
So now I'm thinking that if they had to build these places for these mediums to go to, is there a connection with the church? The actual church that people go to today?
Sure. If you think about it, Tina, when Christianity got started, people were used to worshiping outside. They held all their meetings outside. The mediums would sit in a crock of a tree or in a cave or wherever. Christianity wanted the people to come in the building. The people didn't want to come. They said, where's our medium going to be? So they said, we're going to take the cabinet, we're going to put it on the roof. And this way your medium will be in there and you can sit underneath him and hear it instead of sitting outside of the curtain. But they said, but where's the trumpet? We know that the voices usually speak out of the trumpet. So they took the cone and they stuck it on top of the cabinet, and churches have steeples. Lo and behold, you have the cone on top of the cabinet, on top of the roof, and the people were supposed to gather underneath and hear the voice of God.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you.
So all along, just about every church that we're looking at, inside this country and in other countries, is really just the establishment of the cabinet with the trumpet on top.
Exactly.
100% right.
They took that and they've created that and turned it into many different types of religions.
And the Catholic Church did one better. They took the cabinet, they put it inside the church, and you were supposed to talk to God in the confessional booth, where the priest is supposedly the voice of God, and you're sitting on one side, and there's a separation in between, which represented the curtain that used to separate the cabinet part of it, and that also was going back to the same method of communication.
So when people talk about the church as the house of God, the house to pray, what they really meant in ancient times was people gathering to listen to a medium, not a priest.
Right. When it said in the Bible that Abraham built an altar to the Lord and he called it Bethel, Bethel means the house of God. El was the God. Beth means house. And Awan told me many times he built a cabinet, and that's what he was sitting in, and the people outside of it would hear the voice of God. That was the house of God, this little tent.
Remember one thing, Tina, the word psychic. I don't like that word, but the word psychic means soul and mind. Think of that. But it's been tainted so badly that when you hear someone say about a person that's psychic, I've been called everything under the sun. Doesn't bother me anymore. but I'm going to continue teaching to get people to open their mind and really understand. Because when we die, we just go to another dimension that we have already created here while we were in the physical. There's no such thing as hell. That's all man-made stuff.
And now, evidently, the structure of the church is also man-made. Originally, it
man-made.
meant something
Yes.
different
Right.
than what it's being
Man-made.
used as right now.
Most religious rituals have a psychic history to them. Most people don't understand what that psychic root is, what that history is, but most rituals have some sort of psychic meaning behind them.
So this notion of coming to this one building once a week, every week, or a couple times a week might have meant something at one time if there was a medium there.
Yes.
Exactly.
But right now, we don't really see priests doing this, or maybe they claim to do this. But maybe people think they do this, and maybe that's the key. But it's not. It's not the case, in fact.
You know, Tina, I'll go one further. I've heard Reverend Hewitt give lectures, and it's like sometimes they were so wonderful because he was in trance and Spirit was speaking through him. It was just the most fantastic thing. Later on, I'd go and listen to that same tape, and it wasn't as fantastic. And that's because the energy wasn't there from the Spirit person. Part of you responds to that energy. There's a part of you that your soul, it just responds. And by hearing the tape, that energy isn't present. It's not quite the same. And this is why people would come to be in the presence of the medium, because they would feel such enough upliftment from it that it was really beyond words.
You see, spirit goes to spirit, physical to physical. That's what happens. And you see, a person just can't say, well, lay your hands on somebody and let them be healed. They can't do that. They have to prepare themselves to become the instrument. I have to prepare myself to do a reading. I call them counseling, because everybody else is out there doing readings, and many of them are not true mediums. I hate to say that. It's the truth.
So now you would feel the presence, even if you weren't preparing yourself for a trance. You would simply feel the presence of spirit because, like you were saying, one body attracts the other body.
Physical,
Yes.
physical.
So maybe we could also relate that to if we've had a sense that somebody was next to us, near us, or if we closed our eyes and somebody walked into the room.
Or you feel
we
it.
could feel that someone's there.
Right.
Or you could feel your hand over someone else's hand, even though it didn't touch them.
You can feel the presence of the Spirit people, yes.
Today in this age, everybody's got boom boxes going, the TV's going, or something is going. And the best thing that I know of is to go out in the woods where it's absolute silent. You're with nature, and that is when, if you're going to hear voices or celestial music, that's when you hear them.
So the best church is maybe
Nature.
nature, the woods,
Yes.
a tree.
Yes.
Yes.
We've all heard about that.
Yeah.
And that could be a topic for another show.
Yes.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. And our show regarding materialization comes to a close. Materialization, we learned, an example of it was a very interesting rare seance that you were part of with Silver Bell. And I encourage everyone there to look this information up because it is available to the
Yes.
public. And of course, it can also be found in your book, My First Encounter with an Angel.
Right.
And that's fascinating. That's just fascinating information. And I thank you both for joining me. And until next time. And thank you for joining.